So you're after a small flagship Android phone with a triple camera system to get some of that zoom camera goodness. What do you pick? Chances are you're looking at either the Galaxy S24 or the Google Pixel 9 Pro. Both are great devices, but with the S24 being older now and a bit cheaper, should you get the Samsung and save money, or is there a real benefit to Google's Pixel phone? I'm Cam Bunton, this is Trusted Reviews, and in this video I'll tell you. Now, when I talk about compact or small phones, I am of course talking relative to the modern day flagship phones, which are spectacularly massive. 5 to 10 years ago, any phone with the 6-inch screen would have been branded as huge or phablet sized. In this day and age, these two phones are among the most compact flagship devices you can get. But if the size, the weight and the feel and nimbleness is your primary concern, it's the Galaxy that wins on that front. Not only is it shorter, narrower and thinner than the Google phone, it's also a solid 30 grams lighter. It's impressive actually how nimble it is compared to a lot of the competition. It has that throw it in your pocket and forget about it kind of feel to it. Now saying that, there is advantage to Pixel's build. Firstly, it does look and feel a bit more premium. Their polished, slightly curved edges and the purposeful design of the camera housing and the frosted glass on the back just have that bit more of a luxury finish to them. But it is worth noting here that objectively, when it comes to durability, there's not much to separate them here at all. Both have Gorilla Glass Victus 2 on the front and the back, and both have aluminium mid-frames to support the structure of the device, and both are water and dust resistant to IP68 levels. Now, as for displays, the Pixel display is slightly larger but has a narrower aspect ratio. It's also slightly sharper and brighter, reaching peaks of 3000 nits. As always, it's worth a reminder that peak brightness generally just means small bright spots in HDR video, not brightness across the entire panel. But still, looking at the entire panel brightness when cranked up, it still hits about 2000 nits, which is still brighter than what Samsung can manage. The other thing I noticed with Samsung's display is that when looking at it from any angle other than directly head-on, it takes on a bit of a green tint, which affects the colours on the display. Head-on, it looks balanced, vibrant and sharp with lively colours. Pixel generally I found a little too warm, saturating those reds and oranges a little too much in its default adaptive mode. However, like Samsung, there is the ability to pick a more muted, natural mode if you want to. Samsung gives you a little more control over the white balance and the colours though. Still, I found both really good for general watching, whether it be Netflix, YouTube or any other popular streaming service, but I did really appreciate the slightly larger size on the Pixel, although the skinnier bezels on the Samsung are divine. They can both reach 120Hz refresh rates for smooth, sharp animations too. Now, while there was a difference in displays, it's the software that makes a larger point of comparison, if only because Samsung and Google both have very different approaches to Android skins. Pixel software is bright, big and colourful and comes loaded with Google-developed software only. That includes some pretty smart AI things like Gemini Live for natural conversations with Google's AI assistant, and Pixel Studio for generating images. Samsung software is more like traditional Android in that the quick settings drop-down is a neat grid of small icons, and the software comes loaded with lots of Samsung extras. Many of those are duplicates for things that Google already loads onto any Android phone, so we're talking things like an internet browser, messages, calendar, payment systems, things like that that are already there. So it means there is a lot of duplicate bloat that's kind of redundant. There is some Galaxy AI stuff, but a lot of it is a copy of what Google does better in its own apps. Things like the editing features in Gallery for removing objects are better in Google Photos. Circle to Search is a Google feature too and is coming to more and more Android phones as the year drags on. As for other features, Google has the satellite SOS service, which means you can get in contact with emergency services when you have no signal. It also has ultra-wideband support for precision finding of lost items. Samsung has Dexter, which means you can plug it into a TV or a monitor and use a computer-like interface to get some work done in a pinch. Now, when it comes to performance and battery life, there is one winner here, at least when it comes to pure power. Samsung's chip inside the Galaxy, whether you get the Exynos or the Snapdragon version, is a more powerful chipset than the Tensor G4 inside the Pixel. It's better equipped for those highly intense, graphically demanding games titles like Genshin Impact or Call of Duty in their highest settings. It is worth noting here, however, that when it comes to the casual, everyday use that most people put their phones through, both phones are very well equipped. I didn't notice any huge difference in terms of speed, app loading times, or responsiveness. So if your phone usually is typically limited to fairly casual games, TikTok, social media, watching videos, I don't think you'll notice that extra power from the Samsung at all. It's a fairly similar story looking at battery life too. The Pixel has the larger battery, and despite other people's tests saying different, in ours we found there wasn't that much difference at all. And in fact, when it came to light gaming versus just video watching, the Samsung seemed more conservative with its battery usage. So you might find if you're more into gaming despite its smaller size, the Samsung battery should get you further. For someone like me who manages about 2 or 3 hours of screen time a day, usually quite casual, both can happily get through the full day without getting too close to draining fully by bedtime. Usually, depending on what those 2 or 3 hours were spent doing, it would be between 35 and 45% battery on the two phones when I plugged it in at night time. I mentioned the triple camera systems right at the beginning of this video, and from testing them side by side, I think it's pretty clear that there's one overall winner here, and you can probably guess which one it is already. As far as specs go, the Pixel has the better quality ultra-wide and zoom lenses alongside its primary camera. Plus, where Samsung's zoom camera is a 3x optical, the Pixel can go to 5x zoom without sacrificing image quality. But that's not the only way in which it beats the Samsung. Taking landscape photos with any of the cameras, you'll get a much more realistic shot from the Pixel than what Samsung can manage. Part of that is down to the fact that Samsung always tends to oversaturate greens and blues, so natural parts of the image don't really look all that natural. Pixel's more warm and golden tone helps its realistic look, but also it tends to keep more authentic texture in things like the grasses and the bushes. Samsung also often smooths to get rid of that, but also cranks up the exposure somewhat to make everything look bright and vibrant, even when it's a grey overcast day. Now I get why Samsung does this, since it helps elevate darker parts of the image, particularly around shadows, and that helps bring more detail and colour, but it's not a faithful representation of the scene. Natural textures become a real point of difference when you start hitting that zoom button. Going to 5x and 10x zoom, you can see where Samsung tends to smooth and sharpen images a lot, to the point where it starts looking like a painting. Pixel retains a lot more of the realistic textures of trees, leaves and the hills in the background, and just generally looks more real. The Pixel was also better at focusing quickly on objects that are close to the lens, using its automatic macro mode to ensure sharpness was attained even at very short distances. And the ultra-wide camera also seemed generally stronger than Samsung's, producing sharper images with less noise in them. But this became more obvious in night mode when light levels were really low, particularly in scenes without lots of nearby lighting helping to illuminate anything. In fact, in most instances, I preferred the night sight mode shots from the Pixel to the night mode images from Samsung, if only because again, Samsung tends to overbrighten and oversaturate a lot of the time. But also the way it sharpens and processes detail just doesn't look as authentic as the Pixel. It's Samsung, in its effort to produce flawless, noiseless, colourful images, actually makes something that borders on the cartoonish and artificially generated. You might like it because it's more eye-catching on social media, but it makes it a difficult photo to work with if you want to edit it and tweak it to your liking. Video-wise, I did prefer the Samsung, even though again colours were a bit too in your face. The Pixel results often looked a bit grainy and dark. Now, I've not said at any point that the Pixel is perfect, of course it isn't. There's clearly still a lot of processing going on in the Google Photos, but it does so without completely losing the essence of reality. Now in the end, it's clear both of these phones are really solid devices, offering great features and levels of performance. There are a couple of things that might sway you one way or the other though. One of those is price. Not only is the Pixel 9 Pro more expensive than the Galaxy S24 was when it first launched, but now that the Samsung is older, you should be able to find the S24 even cheaper still. And given that it's only really in the camera department that the Pixel has a clear advantage, that's a saving worth taking into account. However, for those who want the best small Android camera phone, it's really difficult to find one better than the Pixel 9 Pro. It takes great photos with all three lenses in pretty much any condition without any effort. Just point, shoot, and you'll get a great photo, even at nighttime. If money's no object, that's the one I would buy, no questions asked. If you want Pixel goodness without the price tag though, there is the Pixel 9 regular version, which has a slightly worse display and only 2 cameras, but otherwise shares a lot of the features and performance of the Pixel 9 Pro. Let me know what you think of these two phones in the comments down below. Have you bought one? Are you going to buy one? Or you can grab me on social media. I'm at Cam Bunton. If you did like this video, please do leave a thumbs up, subscribe and tap that notification bell, and I'll see you again in the next one. Thanks so much for watching. Bye bye.